A new report out just this morning reveals more than 80% of Jewish adults in the United States say anti-Semitism has increased in the last 5 years. Those numbers come from the new annual study released by the American Jewish Committee. Among its findings, 41% of American Jews say they feel their status in the U.S. is less secure now when compared to just a year ago. That's up 10 points. The survey reveals 26% of Jews in the United States say they were the target of anti-Semitism in 2022. 69% of American Jews have experienced anti-Semitism online in the past 12 months, either as a target themselves or by seeing anti-Semitic content. And 38% of all Jewish respondents reported they have altered their behavior at least once in the past year due to fears of anti-Semitism. Joining us now, the CEO of the American Jewish Committee, former Democratic Congressman of Florida, Ted Deutch. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning.
Good to be with you.
Sitting next to another Deutch, no relation.
Thank God for you.
Not as far as we know.
We'll let you two talk here in just a second. But we were just discussing in the break, some of these numbers that you're out with today line up with a lot of what we've seen in the last few years about ignorance of history on the one hand, and then what's happening right in front of us in the present.
Well, it's what's happening right in front of us in the present, and especially online, and the normalization of anti-Semitism. Those statistics that you quoted, the fact that more than 40% of American Jews feel less secure now than they did just a year ago. That's a 10 percentage point increase over last year. People change their behavior. Think about that. The fact that Jews are so concerned about the rising anti-Semitism that they have to think about whether they can be identified as Jews, whether the hatred for the Jewish community is so great that they should avoid going to certain places. We can't tolerate that in America, and the survey shows how bad it is and really calls on us to step up and do more across society.
So how do we explain what's happening right now? We like to think of ourselves as a progressive country and that we get better over the years, over the generations, that we move past some of our old biases and things like that. But recently it's gotten worse. Why?
Well, there is not an easy answer to this. Anti-Semitism, Jew hatred is a centuries-old disease, and the conspiracy theories that are central to it tend to increase at certain moments when there's economic uncertainty, when people are undermining their belief in government, when we look at COVID and the conspiracy theories there and QAnon. So this is a conspiracy theory, and because of everything that's happening, we've seen this increase. But again, it's been normalized, Willie. The fact is, when a famous artist, when an influencer posts something online, suddenly millions of people see something, and then the anti-Semites come out from under their rocks and they start hurling banners across highway overpasses, and they project anti-Semitic statements on football stadiums, and they do more online. That's the moment we're in. That's why AJC has a call to action against anti-Semitism across society. All of us need to act. And the fact is, it's never just the Jews. No. And if we take this seriously and we simply say there's no tolerance for this, we're ultimately benefiting society as a whole, because when there's anti-Semitism that's allowed to grow, there's a bigger problem in our democracy.
Congressman, Willie asked you the question of, what's the cause of this? You have to put a lot of this at the doorstep of Donald Trump. He made hate chic. Basically, in Charlottesville, there's good people on both sides of it. And so this was there. But we had a fearless leader, and I say that, with tongue-in-cheek, going back to Rocky and Bullwinkle, that made it okay and said it was okay to hate. And I don't know as a Jewish guy, I get a lot of, not always about Jewish, but a lot of hate things, just talking politics. But the amount of times the word Jew is thrown in there when there's you Jew bad, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's stunning. It's stunning.
Well, and what's really important, Donnie, is we have to be willing to call out anti-Semitism wherever it comes from on the political spectrum. So if it's members of Congress espousing anti-Semitic tropes, we have to call it out. If it's a former president of the United States hosting a rabidly anti-Semitic Holocaust denier for a meal at his home, we've got to call that out too. The only way we can confront this is to not politicize it, and wherever it occurs, to say this is not who we are in America.
So, Ted, that anti-Semite that the former president hosted, Holocaust denier, and your organization has found among the general population, only 53% now know that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. As we were talking, as you sat down, that generation is getting older. They won't be around much longer. Is your fear then that the denialism will only grow and could lead to more violence?
I think we have to acknowledge that while it's unfortunate that people will no longer be able to hear directly from Holocaust survivors, and the numbers are alarming, barely 50% know that 6 million Jews were killed, I think we also have to acknowledge that we shouldn't have to rely on the understanding that 6 million Jews were killed for us to know that when Jews are gunned down in their synagogue, in a grocery store, walking down the street, when they're at risk just for being visibly Jewish, that's not acceptable. So yes, we need to do a better job educating about the history of anti-Semitism and where it can lead, but we also have to be really clear that this kind of hatred, it's Jew hatred. It can't be tolerated.
So Congressman, is your agenda to both call it out, but then are there other steps? Are there steps that the government should be taking? Are there steps that people can take in their lives? What are you recommending people do?
Yeah, thanks. Our call to action against anti-Semitism, available at AJC.org, does exactly that. It lays out all of the things that can be done by businesses, by government, by law enforcement, by social media companies who have a responsibility here to be more transparent, to enforce their community standards. And it has things that individuals can do to educate themselves so that when someone starts spewing anti-Semitic garbage, people will know it for what it is and understand a little bit more about how the Jewish community carries the weight of centuries of anti-Semitism on their shoulders, that informs how we respond to what's happening now. So there is a lot that we can do, and the administration, the Biden administration, under the leadership, in this case of the second gentleman, is in the process of putting together a national action plan. We applaud them for that. We think that's an important step.
Appreciate you keeping a spotlight on this.
Willie,
we will too.
Willie, I'm sorry. Before we go, I'm sitting here. It's the fifth. Today's the 5th anniversary of Parkland.
Yes.
And I know it's not why I came on, but I want to take a moment.
Please.
Only after what happened in East Lansing, just to make sure that the families, the student survivors, the community understands that whether it's me, whether it's all of us, that we're going to continue to remember.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and you're a good person to be here because you experienced that so directly in your state, and also because you had a chance as a congressman to do something about it. We've been talking all morning in the wake of another shooting on the campus of Michigan State last night about what needs to change, what should change. Now that you're outside of government, can you speak to the frustration of things not changing inside of it?
I spend all of my time now at a fiercely nonpartisan organization. We fight anti-Semitism and try to strengthen the Jewish community. But the issue of nonpartisanship is front and center, and we need to find bipartisan solutions for the issues that we've been talking about to protect the Jewish community, but we need to find bipartisan solutions. We need to come together to act against gun violence. It happens all the time, all of the time. And I hope, and with the perspective I have now from the outside, I hope that there's a better sense of the importance of coming together, especially on a morning when we reflect on 5 years since Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and 17 were killed, and what happened just yesterday in East Lansing.
And we're going to have much more on Parkland on this 5th anniversary. CEO of the American Jewish Committee, former Congressman from Florida, Ted Deutch. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Billy.